Gentlemen, hey, congratulations on this new documentary, Don't Fall in Love with Yourself.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's always interesting to watch these music documentaries, especially I'm not very familiar with the punk scene myself, obviously, but John, I'm going to throw the first question to you is how did this what sparked you to do this documentary in the first place?
It just felt like something that should have a documentary about it. And outside of like supplemental stuff that like Justin and Sonny K and whoever else had like made for specific albums releases, like there wasn't like a proper record for it. And I was just like, well, there's all these stories that I've heard about all this stuff. Why doesn't it exist yet? And so I kind of honestly, I just like waited and I was just like, someone's gonna do it, right? Like someone has to. And finally I just asked to do it because I wanted it to exist.
So Justin, tell us about how John approached you and why you agreed to be a part of the main subject of this documentary.
Well, yeah, John and I were friends. Like I would see him on tour and stuff, and we'd always catch up. And I knew that he was involved in like film stuff. I think he'd worked on some videos for various projects of mine, and so I knew um my expectations of what I would assume was already like surpassed by the stuff he did. So when he asked, I was just like, yeah, sure. That's I mean, it sounds like kind of insane to have someone ask that question. But I was like, yeah, whatever, let's do that. And I kind of, you know, I didn't think it would happen. I didn't think it would happen to the extent that it did. I was just like, yeah, sure, let's try this out. And then we did, and it was a successful endeavor, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin, it's funny as your friends describe you as an open book. So you were very comfortable about your story being told on this film then.
Yeah, I mean, like, humility's part of human nature, and I don't necessarily. I mean, I think everyone's capable of being like shitty, and so like the things that I've done were like a response to something, and so on and so forth. So I don't know, like, yeah, I don't really have anything to hide, like even down to like the very simple stuff, like when people ask like, oh, what's your what do they say, like when they ask you like when you're like, oh, I like Britney Spears, no one should know, what's it called,
Guilty pleasure.
guilty
Guilty
pleasure,
pleasure.
yes. So I mean, I don't have those. It's just like, yeah, whatever, this is what I'm into, and this is how I am, like good and bad, take it or leave it, I guess. I mean, if there's like a negative part of who I am, I try to fix it, I guess. So yeah, whatever. We can talk about whatever. I mean, I do kind of cringe at some of the stuff I say. I'm like, fuck, I probably should have had a better nuance, and but it is what it is. Yeah, whatever.
Well, you have a very accomplished life, John. Justin's life is nearly 5 decades. How did you want an approach to tell his story for this?
Initially, I just wanted it to be kind of a character piece. I wanted to see, like, I didn't have a lot of money going into it, and I was just like, how can I do this project and not like go bankrupt trying to self-fund it? And so I just mostly wanted to focus on him. But then as like he was telling the stories, and as I was starting to cut up like our big initial interview, I realized like we needed all the other voices, and so it's just I realized it was more of a collective thing than I was initially thinking. Um, where I do think that as much as he would deny it, I mean, I think Justin is like the fulcrum of this. I don't think a lot of this would have happened without him. Um, but at the same time, like, yeah, all these other people are essential. And so I realized it was much more about like that world and all those bands and like the collective effect of them as opposed to like him as a person.
So how did you gather everyone in Justin's life to be a part of this? Were there any troubles?
No, I mean, like, we had people that just like weren't interested in interviews. But like Justin was very open and like hooked us up with contacts, and a lot of it was just like waiting for people to tour and come in town, where like to get Jeremy Bolm from Touche, like I was gonna go to that show anyway, so I just like hit him up before the show to try to get the interview. Um, like when you're doing this, you don't have all the money to like fly around to whoever to get all these interviews. a lot of it's just like a waiting game where it's like eventually they're going to come around. It's an active band, you know.
That is so true. Justin, I didn't realize you provided Jon with so much footage of your past exploits. How did you keep them all? And then Jon could jump right in on how to arrange all that for the film.
Well, when I was a little kid, I was really into Maximum Rock and Roll, the magazine, and in the back there you could always do like video trading, and I'd always try to get, cool videos of bands that I was into. And so I think that just sort of, in a way, that like translated into my, musical projects and stuff. So when I was first starting to play music when I was 15, if there was someone videotaping, I'd usually say like, hey, can I get it? Can I get your contact? I'd like to get a copy. And then I just would kind of save things over the years. And then eventually, I think there was a lot of like tape trading, which would happen. Like people would trade shows. And I don't know, somehow I just kind of would try to archive content, and it wasn't always like good or whatever. And there's things that I wish I did have that I know people filmed, but I didn't. But yeah, I think I just collected it. I don't really collect a lot of stuff. But I did collect a lot of footage on VHS, and then also like mini DV, and then eventually like just digital files and stuff. And then I handed everything over to Jon. I was like, good luck getting through all this shit.
Jon, tell us about that process of organizing and archiving everything.
Yeah, I mean that's basically like the first 6 to 8 months of this project was like just sitting down with a VHS player at like after I got off work, and then just like watching through like 2 or 3 of the VHSs and just like logging them and just trying to like keep track of everything, try to think about the story in my head, and take notes on like what I thought was the best stuff. And so it was nice. Like I think I actually prefer having to do all that legwork because it really made me sit down and watch everything, because there's no way to fast forward through VHS. Like you just have to let it play in real time. It's not like you're transferring a file. So I got really familiar with all the footage before I even had to like dive into the edit, because I was just spending months just watching it and not being able to do anything with it. Where like Justin, I saw that new Mars Volta documentary down when I was in Dallas, and like the editor was there for the Q&A, and he was talking about how like Omar just like handed him a bunch of drives that had everything like perfectly organized, because everyone's like it's only made of archival footage, so it's just like, how did you get through all this? And he's like, oh, it was already organized and you just hand it to me, so I just like went through it really quickly.
What was it, Jon? Was it challenging to digitize all this old footage for the film?
No, I have a bunch of old stuff that, just because I know I do this kind of work. So I have multiple VHS players, I have many DV players, I have like mini DV recorders. And so like I'm usually prepared for whatever it is. I don't have a Betamax machine. That's like the only thing I'm missing, but I haven't had to need one yet.
Betamax, that certainly does bring back memories. Justin, early in your career, what do you suppose is your primary influence to your music?
It's a good question. So a lot of times when people ask me that, I assume they're like wanting to know me. They wanted me to list a few bands or something. But I really do think a lot of like, yeah, the list of bands it will probably be obscure and maybe bizarre to most people, and I think that's fine and relevant. But I wonder what drives someone to want to listen to something that's like, a good example would be when I was 12, I saw the Cramps, and I got to meet them, and it like completely changed my life. And most 12-year-old kids probably don't. I mean, I think they all need to see the Cramps, or should have, but like most of them wouldn't go. And like that's what drove me to that, I think, is more interesting. I don't know, like a lot of it would be my upbringing or lack of parenting, that coupled with the fact that like I was really into skateboarding, and it kind of seemed to run, punk and hardcore seemed to run parallel with skateboarding. And it was still kind of like all part of this, sort of like outlaw culture, or like a dangerous you know, subculture, youth culture, whatever. So I was into it. And also my dad was like, thought punk rock and skateboarding was terrible. So of course I was like, oh, then I'm gonna totally get into that, because I would do whatever the opposite of my parents would tell me to do. So those are kind of, that's the main thing I would say would probably be like skateboarding and like Thrasher, the magazine, and Thrasher Thrasher skate comps, skate rock comps. Those are all like the things that kind of put me on the trajectory of getting into the kind of music that I'm into. But yeah, as I said, like the Cramps, but also stuff like the typical like Sex Pistols, Suicidal Tendencies, Killing Joke, Birthday Party, all like the classics, or like the stuff that musically put me on the path that I'm on. But I also was like into whatever. I was into all kinds of stuff, so it wasn't like limiting. Because a lot of times I would be into. I was like really into hip hop, like specifically Tommy Boy records, and kind of like the electro aspect of early hip hop in like 80, I don't know, 82, 83 maybe. So I got into like electronic music through that, and then so on and so forth. So yeah, it was all these different like paths, but they all kind of intersected eventually. So
I also found what's actually very interesting that especially from you, John, is that you put in the San Diego perspective on his upbringing, because San Diego itself, I lived there for over 10 years before. In fact, I went to UC San Diego, so I passed by Che Cafe quite a bit back from 92 to 97. And I think you played there on campus while I was in college, so I wasn't even familiar with that. How much does San Diego did actually influence your music? Because San Diego, it's when I lived there, it was always like a laid back city. No one wanted to, everyone was so chilled. No one wanted to do anything.
That's a good question, and also kind of a loaded question, because I think there's two like sort of paths to that answer. It would be like when I moved to San Diego, I realized that there was because it's a tourist city, it's also very conservative, being that it's like close to the border. Also, it's a military city, so you have this like sort of underlying authoritarianism aspect, I suppose. When I was growing up too in the 90s, there was like an influx of Nazi skinheads due to our proximity to Fallbrook and Tom Metzger's White Aryan Resistance. So there was like this sort of insane level of hostility, because for one, I had like my friends, like my brothers and sisters who were from Tijuana, or like a lot of my friends who are Latinx in San Diego, who were directly affected by white supremacy. And so I was like, oh man, this is crazy. And it really got me like sort of like in tune to issues of racism and classism. And so those things all intersected with I think the music and the punk scene, the Che Cafe being a good example, where it was like this sort of autonomous like anarchist collective, and it was very a unique space where like I could go see a band like Heroin, who's like like a 90s hardcore band, play with a 3-piece jazz band, and then be all you can eat spaghetti, and so like that sort of mindset of like, here, we're gonna have all this stuff be one event for the youth, or for people, or weird people, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, made it like really apparent that you could draw from all different avenues. Kind of going back to like my explanation of the things that influenced me. It was like, oh, I'm into this and I'm into that, and we're all friends. Let's like have a show that has hip hop and has punk and has thrash metal and has whatever folk. It didn't really matter, as long as we were all there for sort of a greater cause. So yeah, San Diego is a unique space, because I don't think it was very like, I don't think it was like it wasn't very obvious. It wasn't very easy for a lot of people to create stuff. And so when we did, we had to kind of use different we had to kind of use whatever we can get a hold of. And it wasn't always the obvious thing. We didn't have like the great so-and-so clubs or whatever. It was just kind of like, oh, we're going to play in the sewer, or on this top of this parking structure in this person's garage, or whatever, and then you made it work. So those are also things that influenced me in many ways as well.
Absolutely. John, music documentaries is always hard to get off the ground because of the music and the songs. Could you tell us about getting all the rights to everything? And I'm sure Justin helped you quite a bit on this.
Yeah, I mean, Justin owns a lot of the rights to this stuff anyway, because he ran the label that most of it came out on. And then the few things that aren't from his label that he owns are from like a friend's label. So it's just a matter of like negotiating with like Epitaph or Ipecac. So it was all very like easy. We just had to send out some forms and make sure that they were cool with everything.
Yeah,
They were like,
Epitaph.
they, go ahead.
Epitaph was, I mean, Brett Gurewitz, the owner of Epitaph Records, is in the documentary, and he gets it. So he was like, yeah, use it. And I was grateful to have him in the film. I'm also grateful just to be on his label and to be a close friend of his. I absolutely love that guy. So yeah, for them to hand over the rights was pretty great. And obviously, like we assumed that would be the case as well.
Justin, it's your career spans over three decades here. What keeps you going in this business? I mean, the music industry is a very, very tough business.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not really, I think most art is not really set up for like success of a capitalistic endeavor. It's like you kind of have to do it for other reasons. I think like this is from my heart, or I need to do this to, expel demons or whatever, like to help myself cope with life or whatever you want to call it. So like I kind of knew there was success is a really strange thing to measure, and I'm constantly being reminded, like, oh, you're fucking poor, like, yeah, look what I do, like, of course, but success also is measured in like the craziest ways when you have people come up to you and say like, hey, your music saved my life. That's a huge I don't even know what words to use. Like to have someone say that you saved their life, someone you've never met, and you're like, that was not my intention. And the fact that I was part of that, and the fact that that happens quite often is huge for me. Would I rather save other, people's lives that I feel maybe have had, I don't, whatever their life's paths are what they are, but like would I rather save them and sort of struggle financially, or be like financially stable and like have this like sort of like, I don't know, I'm trying to be nice here, but like just like average run of the mill artistic output, and I would 100% choose the one that I've been on. Yeah, finding value in something like that holds depth is way more important than finding value in a royalty check. And also I'm also like capable of laughing at a royalty check that's like 97 cents. You're just like, oh yeah, this is funny. So yeah.
Oh, so true, so true. Jon, you basically covered almost basically all of Justin's life in every aspect. Could you also tell us about putting in the not so expected stuff into the documentary, such as the Jerry Springer show or his appearance onto Asia Argento's film?
Yeah, I mean the Jerry Springer thing was kind of like a formative story that got me into him. I mean, it's again, it's like another crazy story that goes along with the rest, where it's just like, oh, this person just did this, like, uh, yeah. I mean, there's been so many articles written about that it just like it made perfect sense. I think I would have gotten yelled at if I hadn't included it, by everybody. Um, but yeah, when it came to like the Asia Argento stuff, like he had just when we were working on the movie, he had just done that and he was starting to do more film work, and it just made sense to cover all of the avenues, because I don't look at Justin as like a musician. I look at him as like a multifaceted artist. I think there's a lot more that goes into it. I mean, even just like the mentality of like understanding album layout and understanding like how to like run a record label, I think is like its own art form. Like you're doing project management and you're trying to figure out how to like brand and sell the idea of a thing. Like you're thinking about records in way more rounded of a way than just like what is the sequencing of the tracks or something like that. So it just made sense to like approach it from all avenues.
Yes, absolutely. And Justin, in your opinion, what would you think your legacy is? What's your imprint onto this world?
uh I don't know. Uh
What would you like?
I what's that?
What would you like it to be?
Well, it's a hard question to answer, because I think for me a big chunk of what drives the stuff I do is to like push my opposition, and if I didn't have that as sort of like a prominent part of what I do, I might not be who I am or where I am or what I am, I guess, whatever. So like with that being said, I want to be able to make someone react, even if it's bad, you know, like if they hate it, that's fine. I think the thing that I want to avoid always is indifference from another person. And so I don't know how I'd want to be remembered. I mean, because a lot of people, I think the negative stuff is really beneficial, and it goes a long ways and says a lot. Where like a lot of people don't try to achieve that, or they don't focus on that, or they don't embrace it, and I definitely embrace it. So I don't know. Like, I wish I had a cool answer to this question. It's a very unique question. I would just say like, you know, I just want to make sure that like someone has a reaction. And when it starts to become people are indifferent, then I probably should hang it up. So
No, I think you're doing well, because you live a life with no regrets, and that's the beauty. So I'm going to throw this last question to Jon. It's not quite as similar as I threw it out to Justin, but because you made this documentary, as audiences have a chance to watch this film, what is the one most important take you hope they walk away with?
I don't know. I feel like the movie is not like overtly political, but it has political aspects to it. And I do think that one of the smarter things that Justin says in it is like, you know, how you spend your money is more applicable than like what you're saying on any given day or tweeting or whatever. Like, I do think that like people should really like not allow themselves to become hopeless in the sense of like only thinking of large political goals like ending oil or like solving the environment or homelessness or any of that stuff. Like they're all huge problems, and they feel very hopeless when you try to think about how do you fix these things. And I think that the DIY mentality and the aspect of just focus on what you can do and build a community together and like think about practical choices you can make that are going to make small improvements that might accumulate to something bigger, is really important. And I think that most people get lost in like big narratives, you know. Everyone's like super worried about the president, but no one's like thinking about how they should just start like a co-op in their own town, you know.
That is great to hear, Justin, Jon. I really appreciate you carrying this kind of conversation with us. And Justin, good luck on this new album you guys are working on right now.
thanks.
The community is certainly looking forward to that.
Cool.
And thank you once again for speaking to us about Don't Fall in Love with Yourself. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.